is difficult and comes with costs. Our willingness to pay those costs is what tests and defines our commitment to the rule of law and to this wonderful country. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we will now proceed under the 5-minute rule. We have votes coming in any minute now, but I think we'll have time for 3 or 4 members to get their 5-minute question in before the committee will take a recess to go vote. They are not going to close the vote until we get there. I know that much. So we will start with the gentleman from California. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Smith. When Attorney General Garland appointed you, he cited the particularly sensitive matters at issue and extraordinary circumstances as the reason for appointing a special counsel. What did you take that to mean?
What I understood that to mean is I was to conduct an independent investigation and come to my own conclusions about whether the facts and the law.
Candidate for president, that was part of the extraordinary circumstances. Would you agree?
I will rely on his public statements about that. I understood my role as special counsel was governed by the regulations, which required me to make an independent decision on my own.
So certainly you would agree it was important to approach the investigation with humility and restraint. Is that fair?
Looking for tax help? Now there are TurboTax experts right in your neighborhood. They get to know your unique situation and get you every dollar you deserve. So hand off your taxes to a local TurboTax expert today.
I do disagree with that statement. I think my career speaks for itself. I have been.
But that statement was also, and I'm sorry to have to interrupt, I just have a short amount of time. That statement was also echoed by the United States Supreme Court in a unanimous opinion in McDonald versus the United States, where the court overturned convictions that you had pursued against a former governor, criticizing your boundless interpretation of the federal criminal statute. At issue, that opinion was joined by Justices Ginsburg, Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan. So do you also disagree with that statement by those justices?
I have conducted my career in a nonpartisan fashion. That particular case, the legal position that the department took, that wasn't my personal position. That was the position of the department.
I see. So, Mr. Smith, I've had the opportunity during my time on this committee to review the work of 2 special counsels, John Durham, appointed during the Trump administration, and Robert Hur during the Biden administration. And in both cases, they seem to exhibit that humility and restraint that we talked about. But in reviewing in detail the way you conducted this investigation, I see a very different mode of operation, one that sought maximum litigation advantage at every turn, one that repeatedly circumvented constitutional limitations to the point that you had to be reined in again and again throughout the process. For example, shortly after you became special counsel, you issued a subpoena for the phone records of the Speaker of the House of Representatives over a 2-month period, along with for other senators and representatives, even though the public integrity section at DOJ cited litigation risk to doing this. What was that litigation risk?
With respect to the toll record subpoenas that we issued, they were approved by the public integrity section. The public integrity section, in approving those subpoenas, noted the fact that the subpoenas were for records for people who were not targets of our investigation.
But they said there was a litigation risk and you moved forward with it anyway. And not only that, but you also sought orders from judges, making it so those who were having their records seized would not know about it. And you even didn't tell those judges that it was members of Congress whose records you were going after, in apparent contravention of a federal statute saying that a telephone provider for a Senate office shall not be barred from providing notice that the records had been requested. Now, if you sought to do that today, would you be able to get away with that, with asking the judges for a non-disclosure order without telling them these are members of Congress?
When we secured these toll record subpoenas, it was done consistent with department policy. You're correct in that that policy has since changed.
They changed the policy based upon the actions that you took. Similarly, you issued a gag order against President Trump that the DC Circuit Court of Appeals vacated as overbroad. Is that correct?
Well, the DC Court of Appeals, in passing on that order, found that it was justified. They narrowed the order, but they confirmed that the
They
phenomenon.
narrowed the order because it was overbroad. In addition to that, you sought an early trial date that the district court rejected. And when you presented your prosecution memo to Attorney General Garland, it's been reported that he was visibly unimpressed and expressed First Amendment concerns. So, Mr. Smith, looking at the record, I see that you were reversed and rebuked by the Department of Justice itself, by the Attorney General, by the Solicitor General, by multiple district court justices, judges, by the Court of Appeals, and by the U.S. Supreme Court itself. So my final question is, do you believe that you made any mistakes? Do you have any regrets as to how you conducted this investigation?
If I have any regret, it would be not expressing enough appreciation for my staff who work so hard in these investigations. We followed the facts and the law. These people who work for me sacrificed endlessly and have endured way too much for just doing their job. So if anything, I wish that I had thanked them.
Time of the gentleman.
No mistakes. There's that humility. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Yeah, time of the gentleman's right. The chair now recognizes the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the good gentleman from California certainly knows, because he was a student of mine, that lawyers go to court and sometimes they win motions and sometimes they lose motions, and there's no crime in any of that. And I'm just sorry that you had to be lectured about humility and restraint by a politician, because we might not be best poised to lecture you on those particular virtues. But let's go to the toll record, since that's been raised, Mr. Smith. First of all, Congress has allowed toll records to be subpoenaed. This committee has actually tried to limit it over the years, and the senators who are whining the most over on the Republican side in the Senate, they never went along with our determination to try to limit the government's ability to subpoena toll records. So it's perfectly lawful what you did. Explain, why did you want those toll records?
We wanted to conduct a thorough investigation of the matters that was assigned to me, including attempts to interfere with the lawful transfer of power. The conspiracy that we were investigating, it was relevant to get toll records to understand the scope of that conspiracy, who they were seeking to coerce, who they were seeking to influence, who was seeking to help them.
And that's normal investigative practice, right?
In conducting a criminal investigation, securing non-content toll records, as you described, is a common practice in almost any complex conspiracy.
Okay, let's go to something else that I've been hearing over the last week by our colleagues as they've eagerly anticipated your arrival here. They've been saying that there's some kind of First Amendment defense that Donald Trump would have had to the crimes you indicted him for. Is there a valid First Amendment defense to defrauding the public? Is there a valid First Amendment defense to disrupting a federal proceeding? Is there a valid First Amendment defense to violating the voting rights of the people and cheating the public out of a fair election?
The First Amendment is something that we took seriously in our investigation. But the First Amendment does not protect speech that facilitates a crime. Speech that is used to facilitate a crime, a fraud crime in particular, is not protected under the First Amendment. The Supreme Court precedent on that is clear. This is an issue that we litigated before the district court, and the district court ruled, as I just stated, that it is not in fact protected.
And the case law is perfectly clear on this, right? All frauds are perpetrated by speech, right?
Yes.
All conspiracies are perpetrated by speech. So just because your criminal conduct is brigaded with speech doesn't somehow mean you've got a First Amendment defense against trying to overthrow the government. I mean, the people who attacked the police officers on January 6th were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." I suppose that was political speech, or they were saying, "Stop the steal." Does that mean they've got a First Amendment defense to violent assault against the officers?
It does not.
William Barr, by the way, was somebody who was perfectly clear about that. Donald Trump's own attorney general said, there's no freedom of speech that you have to engage in a conspiracy to overthrow an election. to commit crime. He was perfectly clear about that back in those days. In fact, lots of people on that side of the aisle, including my good friend, the chairman, denounced the violence that took place on January 6th. The cat's got their tongue these days. My friend Chairman Jordan said, what happened last week was terrible, was tragic. It's as wrong can be, he said. Republicans, we know all political violence is wrong. I asked my friend Chairman Jordan at a rules hearing, are you also not interested in what happened to us on January 6th? He said, of course, everyone's interested in holding people accountable who did wrong. The FBI is doing that. The Justice Department is doing that, appropriately so. What do you think about the attack on the Department of Justice and the special counsel for doing your jobs?
I think the attack is unjustified. I think the people who work with me as career public servants are people, they're part of the reason I've been a prosecutor for so long, is to work with people like that, not just the prosecutors and also the agents, FBI agents who are heroes, who have served their country not only as agents, but also overseas. I think those attacks are unwarranted based on the facts, and I think that they have no basis in who we are as Americans, as a country. I don't see attacking people like that as anything appropriate.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back to you.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Smith, is Cassidy Hutchinson a liar? She was their star witness, January 6th committee, their star witness in one of those staged and choreographed hearings they paid the former president of ABC News to put together. She was, in fact, the only witness at this special prime time hearing, Tuesday, June 28th, 2022, 8 o'clock in the evening, and she told some stories. I mean, these were some stories. She talked about President lunged across the back seat, grabbed the steering wheel, tried to drive the car to the Capitol. And I just want to know, you think she was lying?
Chairman Jordan, my assessment of that particular issue is that with respect to the testimony about the president lunging towards the driver, my recollection of her testimony about that is that it was secondhand. She said she'd heard that from somebody.
You familiar with the name Tony Ornato?
I'm sorry.
You familiar with the name Tony Ornato?
Yes.
White House Deputy Chief of Operations, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, right? You remember what he said about it?
As I sit here right now, I do not.
Yeah, he said it didn't happen. How about Bobby Engel? You familiar with that name?
Yes, I am.
Secret Service agent who was actually in the car that day. You know what he said? He said it didn't happen. And they both said the first time they ever heard this story was when Ms. Hutchinson testified in the primetime hearing as their star witness of the January 6th committee. By the way, did you ever confirm her testimony about this particular incident?
We conducted, as I said before, our own independent investigation of all aspects of the case that we thought was relevant. We, attorneys from my office.
Did you ever confirm it? That's a simple question.
Well, we interviewed, or I should say attorneys in my office before.
Did you ever confirm the president leaping across the seat, grabbing the steering wheel, this whole concoction she brought up in the January 6th hearing? Did you ever confirm that?
Right. We interviewed another firsthand witness who was in the car, who did not confirm that had happened, but also
in your deposition to the committee last month, Mr. Smith, you said this: my recollection with Ms. Hutchinson was a number of the things that she gave evidence on were secondhand hearsay. You remember making that statement to us last month in the deposition?
I did, and I was referring particularly to what we're talking about now.
Yeah, and you also said Ms. Hutchinson regarding this particular claim was a second or even third-hand witness. We asked you, if you were a defense attorney, how would you handle cross-examining her if she was on the witness stand? And you said, if I were a defense attorney and Ms. Hutchinson were a witness, the first thing I would do was seek to preclude her testimony because it was hearsay. You remember saying all that?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
That's correct, right? Were you going to put her on the witness stand if you ever got to trial?
We had not made final determinations as to who we were going to call as a witness. We had a
You were
large,
still considering her?
we had a large choice of witnesses in this
Are
case.
you familiar what Washington Post reporters Carol Leonnig and Aaron Davis said in their book? They did this book, 300 some pages book on chronicling the whole investigation of the Justice Department. And here's what they said on page 310. They said Jack Smith had wondered whether some of Hutchinson's claims might be relied upon at trial. Still, at one point, Smith told the elections team he wasn't ready to give up on Hutchinson's account. Ultimately, however, Trump administration officials uniformly, fiercely disputed her accounts under oath. Prosecutors on your team told Smith they wouldn't want to use Hutchinson as a witness in court, and Smith agreed. Are Carol Leonnig and Aaron Davis, who wrote this, are they lying?
My recollection is that I certainly had not made any final determinations about
And
who we were going to call.
And
as
that's the point. That is the point. The fact that they used her in a primetime hearing and you won't rule out using her, didn't rule out using her, putting her on the witness stand when everybody knows she wasn't telling the truth, that says it all. That's the degree the left and Democrats were willing to go to get President Trump, putting on the witness stand someone everybody knows is making it up. Everybody knows that. And you were willing to do. By the way, you know how many times Cassidy Hutchinson was mentioned in their report, the January 6th report? Any idea, Mr. Smith?
I do not.
185 times. Someone that the whole country knows wasn't telling the truth, and you were still considering putting her on the witness stand because you had to get President Trump. And everybody can see that. We better take a recess for votes. We will resume as soon as votes are over. Back here 10 minutes after. Mrs. Smith, you guys can go back to the room that you were in.
With Monday.com's intuitive work management platform, you have the power. Not IT, not admins. You're in charge. So you can tailor work exactly how you love to do it. For example, you can add custom fields and choose how you like to view your work without needing help from IT. That's why over 225,000 customers love to use Monday.com, because you have the freedom to build it exactly how you picture it. The first work platform you'll love to use. Monday.com.
Scribe is how you stop explaining the same thing over and over at work. Watch this. It'll change your life. Raise your hand if you told your boss how to do the same thing more than one. Thought so. That's why Scribe. Go to scribehow.com. Click Capture. Do the task once, and Scribe will create a step-by-step guide you can share automatically. You ever walk someone through a giant process and know they'll forget half of it? Scribe puts everything they need to know. Instructions, pictures, videos, all on one page. So the next time they ask, you can just send the link. I know what you're thinking. They still click the wrong thing half the time. Check this out. Scribe will literally guide them through it click by click. Warning, they're going to think you're a genius and ask you how you did it. Just say Scribe. Scribe instantly turns any workflow into a step-by-step guide, so you never have to explain it again. Go to scribehow.com and try it for free. You don't even need a credit card.
Told you Best Buy had a great deal.
98-inch Samsung, big with no blur, plus free install.
And we avoid the Dave Cave.
What's the Dave Cave?
Robbie, you're in the Dave Cave now, baby! Whoa!
You got Robbie again.
Get some!
Don't engage.
I'm not taking my eyes off this TV.
Shop Best Buy for great prices on extra large Samsung TVs with free installation.
To save time.
There.
What just happened?
I just saved time. By buying a car in Carvana. It was all online. Got pre-qualified instantly. Great terms. Oh, we need to get out of here.
What now?
Move those little legs. My car's getting delivered today! Save time and buy your car in Carvana.
Committee will come to order. Gentleman from ranking members recognized for unanimous consent request.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Chairman, and this just goes to the question of the hypothetical witness at the trial that didn't happen. New York Times, May 1, 2024, Trump acknowledges he wanted to go to the Capitol on January 6th.
Without objection.
Carol Leonnig, who you quoted, Carol Leonnig outlines Tony Ornato's history of lies. That's June 30, 2022.
Objection.
In July 1, 2022, the men disputing Hutchinson's testimony are two of Trump's biggest acolytes. And finally, June 29, 2022, CNN, Cassidy Hutchinson stands by her testimony amid pushback. Thank you very much.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, over the past few years, Republicans have waged constant attacks on you. Donald Trump has said you are totally compromised, a political hitman, a left-wing radical, a criminal, a fully weaponized monster, and that you should be considered mentally deranged and thrown out of the country. Just this week, he called you a sick bastard. Unfortunately, the rules of decorum prevent me from saying what I think of Donald Trump. But he is not the only one to launch attacks against you. Chairman Jordan has accused you of abusive surveillance and accused you and your team of partisan and politically motivated prosecutions. Despite the mountain of evidence that you laid out in the special counsel's report and in your court filings, President Trump's supporters are convinced that the only reason your team tried to hold him accountable is because you have a vendetta against him. I want to address these allegations today. You have had a long and distinguished career with the Justice Department, including serving as the chief of DOJ's Public Integrity Section for 5 years. While leading the Public Integrity Section, you led investigations and prosecution of public figures and political leaders from both parties, Republicans and Democrats. Can you give us a couple of examples?
Sorry about that. During my time as the chief of public integrity, I investigated cases involving both Republicans and Democrats. The standard in all of those cases was the same: follow the facts and the law. Didn't matter what party you in, it mattered the facts of the case. In doing that, there were cases I brought against Democrats and cases I brought against Republicans. There were also cases that I investigated and did not bring against Democrats and Republicans. Party affiliation played no role in my investigations. I can think of multiple cases of prominent members of Congress that we investigated who were Republicans, who upon reviewing the law and the facts, I decided not to go forward in those cases. And the same could be said with people on the Democratic side. I've always tried to follow the facts and the law in my career.
When it comes to deciding whether to pursue a criminal prosecution of an individual, what factors do you consider?
The primary factors are the facts and the law. As a federal prosecutor, in making a prosecutorial decision, you're guided by the federal principles of prosecution, which guide one not only to look at the facts and the law, but the federal interests. And that is exactly what we did in this case, as set forth in my final report.
Does partisan politics play a role in your decision whether or not to prosecute someone?
None.
To be clear, did partisan politics play a role in your decision to charge Donald Trump?
It did not.
What does it do to the justice system if political leaders place pressure on prosecutors to file charges against their political enemies? What are the implications if prosecution decisions are based on politics, not the law?
I think it weakens the rule of law in our country because it weakens the mechanism for us to prosecute, among other things, corruption. When there is political prosecutions targeting people because they're enemies of the president, the department loses credibility and it can't do its job in all sorts of cases.
According to your deposition before this committee, it sounds like your problem was not determining if you had enough evidence to charge Donald Trump, but rather that you might have had too much evidence and struggled to determine how to present a clear narrative to a jury. How would you characterize the evidence against Mr. Trump about inciting an insurrection against the laws of this country? Did you have too much?
Well, With respect to presenting the case that we charged, one of the central challenges was trying to present that in a concise way because we did have so many witnesses. Some of the most powerful witnesses were witnesses who, in fact, were fellow Republicans who had voted for Donald Trump, who had campaigned for him, and who wanted him to win the election. These included state officials, people who worked on his campaign, and advisors. I will say, however, with respect to the charge of insurrection, we did not charge that. As I set forth in my report, well, I believe that there is, courts have found that that was an insurrection and that there's a reasonable interpretation, a reasonable prosecutor could interpret the evidence to support that charge. I chose not to do that, looking at the facts in the law. I thought the charges we brought were appropriate given the evidence that we had.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your decades-long public service and for working tirelessly to uphold the rule of law. Those who attack and smear you and your team in order to protect Donald Trump should be ashamed of themselves. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Smith, do you see criminals to my left? You don't see any. Do you see people who are paraphrasing Ronald Reagan, that liberals aren't stupid, they just know things that don't happen to be true? If the president believed that he was cheated in an election, that there was fraud, or in some other way a number of items led to his defeat, when in fact he should have won according to the Constitution, does that make him a criminal?
Sir,
no, that's a yes or no, please, Mr. Smith. These people here are continuing to grapple constantly with things that aren't true, like socialism works, or that somehow everything the Republicans do is evil and everything they do is right. They've never reached a conclusion in a typical partisan case in which we're not evil because we think something different and we're not wrong. You understand the Constitution. Do you understand the Bill of Rights, that someone has the absolute right to believe something, whether it's true or not, and to advocate for something, whether it's true or not? Do you understand that in addition to your oath to the Constitution, that that's one of the things the First Amendment allows for, isn't it?
yes, sir.
Okay, so if you know that people have a right to opine, lobby for, assert, do everything they can legally to ask for people to make different decisions, then why is it you saw criminal conduct on behalf of a president who believed he didn't win? Chairman Jordan and myself have something in common, along with a number of others here. We saw wrongdoing, and on January 6th, we voted not to confirm 2 states because they had violated the U.S. Constitution in how they selected who got ballots. And yet, you're going to come here and say, oh, I just followed the law. When you went after these people and you said, well, technically I can do that, you didn't see any selective nature or any separation of powers under the Constitution to spying on the activities and the conversations of the Speaker of the House? To what end would conversations between the Speaker of the U.S. House, third or second in line to be the president, and the president, in what basis would it be any of your business other than you believe that there was a conspiracy without conspiracy as a basic premise? You, like the president's men for Richard Nixon, went after your political enemies. Maybe they're not your political enemies, but they sure as hell were Joe Biden's political enemies, weren't they? They were Harris's political enemies. They were the enemies of the president, and you were their arm, weren't you?
No.
No. Oh, great. So you spied on the Speaker of the House and these other senators and so on, and informed no one, and in fact put in a gag order so they couldn't discover it. If they were not subjects of a conspiracy investigation, why did Congress, a separate branch that you under the Constitution, have to respect. Why is it that no one should be informed, including the judges? As you went in to spy on these people, did you mention that you were spying on seeking records so you could find out about when conversations occurred between the U.S. Speaker of the House and the president? Did you inform the judge, or did you hold that back?
My office didn't spy on anyone.
Wait a second. The question I asked you, Mr. Smith, was pretty straightforward. Did you withhold that information from an Article III judge in the process of taking the records of the Speaker of the House?
We complied with Department.
Did you hold back
Mr.
that
Chairman, would you
information?
please instruct the gentleman to allow the witness to answer the questions?
It's not your time. I'd like my time back.
Mr. Chairman,
again,
you have
please.
repeatedly done that in the past. The witness has the right to answer the question.
And there'll be due time to answer the question. Would you please put my time back and let me finish this? Mr. Smith, I asked you a question and you were not responsive to it, and I want you to be responsive to it. Did you, whether you think it was legal or not, whether you think it was right or not, did you withhold the name of Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House, when you were seeking records on Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, or Jim Jordan, the chairman of this committee?
At the time the gentleman is.
No,
is- you
please
got
give
a
me
few more
back the
seconds.
time that
No,
was
no,
taken away.
Time has expired, but we're going to let the witness answer your question because it's an important question. The witness can respond.
We did not provide that information to the judge when we requested a non-disclosure order, consistent with the law and consistent with Department.
Mr. Chairman, the amazing thing here today is that we have an admission that an
Mr.
Article
Chairman,
I-
the gentleman's
Yeah,
time has
come on.
expired by now 34 seconds.
It gets more than 5 minutes.
How many
'cause it's a
times you
good
can interrupt
question?
me?
The time belongs to the gentleman from California,
will
but it
be-
has
I
expired.
will be brief in my address to the chairman. We have the evidence that an Article I representative on behalf of the president withheld
Order,
from
Mr.
Article
Chairman.
III.
Mr. Chairman, are we
that
being granted the
information.
same leniency
And
at
with
this
that, I yield back in
Yield back.
disgust of this witness.
Sticking with California, the gentlelady from California is now recognized.
Mr. Smith, thank you for being here today. Earlier the chairman spent a lot of time talking about Cassidy Hutchinson, who we know was just one of many witnesses. It's important to note that there was testimony that she was told something by Mr. Ornato, not that she had personal knowledge. And of course, Mr. Ornato was of very questionable veracity. We had a testimony from a Metropolitan Police Department official about an argument, a big argument that the president was having about going to the Capitol. And in fact, the vehicle was delayed going back to the Capitol while that argument occurred. But having said that, I want to focus on something my colleagues across the aisle seem to want to ignore. The fact that your investigation into President Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 election was built on testimony from members of the Republican Party. In fact, last week, the New York Times published grand jury transcripts from Georgia that show the same pattern in Trump's Georgia criminal case. Georgia's Republican Attorney General Chris Carr testified that he told, quote, and this is a quote, "We're just not seeing the things that you are seeing." And the late Georgia House Speaker David Ralston, also a Republican, testified that Trump's fake elector scheme was, quote, "the craziest thing I've heard." And then there's Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the president's closest allies. In his secret grand jury testimony, Senator Graham told the jurors, quote, "I have told him more times than we can count that he fell short," unquote. And then he said this, quote, "If you told him Martians came and stole votes, he'd be inclined to believe it." Martians, that's from Senator Graham speaking under oath. So here's my question. Mr. Smith, in your deposition with this committee, you testified, and here's a quote, "Our case was built on, frankly, Republicans who put their allegiance to the country before the party." Also, that the president's closest allies are telling him that his claims of election fraud are wrong. And so I'm just wondering, can you explain what you meant in your deposition that it was Republicans who were putting their allegiance to their country ahead of their party?
Yes. There were witnesses who I felt would be very strong witnesses, including, for example, the Secretary of State in Georgia, who told Donald Trump the truth, told him things that he did not want to hear and put him on notice that what he was saying was false. These were people who knew how the elections were conducted in these states. And I believe that witnesses of that nature, witnesses who are willing to tell the truth, even if it's going to impose a cost on them in their lives, my experience as a prosecutor over 30 years is that witnesses like that are very credible, and that jurors tend to believe witnesses like that because they pay a cost for telling the truth.
In terms of the grand jury testimony that's now been released, the fact that Donald Trump, according to Senator Graham, would believe that Martians stole the election, what does that tell you about Trump's state of mind?
That statement is consistent with what we found in our investigation, in that our investigation revealed that Donald Trump was not looking for honest answers about whether there was fraud in the election. He was looking for ways to stay in power. And when people told him things that conflicted with him staying in power, he rejected them, or he chose not even to contact people like that who would know if the election was done properly in the state. On the other hand, when individuals would say things that would allow him to stay in power, no matter how fantastical he was, that over time, we felt confident that he, in fact, knew that the fraud he was making were false.
Who were some of the Republican witnesses who told you that who told President Trump that his claims of election fraud were false? Can you share that with us?
There were a range of witnesses. They ranged from people on his campaign team who had wanted him to win, were employed to help him win the election. They included state officials, state Republican officials who wanted him to win, voted for him, campaigned for him, asked him and his co-conspirators to provide evidence to support their claims, and invariably they never did. It included officials, advisors, people he worked with in the White House who he relied upon for important decisions and who he trusted in other contexts. We felt we had strong evidence from a variety of sources.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
Ms. Chairman, with my fellow Californian, you were allowing the witness.
Yeah, it's a good question. Isn't that grounds to let him answer?
I've given him 30 seconds extra, the gentlelady 30 seconds extra. If the gentleman can be concise and finish up here quickly, we will allow him to finish.
Yes, sir. And just conclude saying we felt that constituted powerful evidence of the knowing falsity of his statements in furtherance of the fraud.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to yield back, noting the presence of officers who were severely attacked.
Got nothing to yield back. You're a minute over. The gentleman from
protecting
Texas.
our lives on January 6th.
The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gill, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Smith, in January of 2023, did you subpoena then Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy's toll records?
Yes, sir, we did.
Yes, you did. And the subpoena covered the time period between November 2020 and January 2021. Is that right?
I'm sorry, sir. Could you say that again?
We're not going to delay like this. The subpoena covered the time period between November of 2020 and January 2021. How many days after Kevin McCarthy was sworn in as Speaker did you subpoena his records?
I don't recall, but those two things had nothing to do with one.
It was 16 days after becoming the highest ranking Republican in the House of Representatives. You subpoenaed his toll records. Do you agree that that might reasonably be considered a violation of the speech or debate clause?
I do not, and I want to be clear that the toll
You were
records-
collecting months' worth of phone data on the Republican Speaker of the House, the leader of the opposition, right after he got sworn in as Speaker, all around the time of a major vote. That sounds like a flagrant violation of the speech or debate clause to me, and I think most people agree with me. And Speaker McCarthy had no recourse, did he? Because you issued a non-disclosure order ensuring that neither he nor any of the American people knew about these subpoenas. Is that right?
The toll record, the non-content toll record subpoenas We did secure non-disclosure orders for those subpoenas.
You did, and let me ask you,
Those-
Mr. Smith, at the time you secured those non-disclosure orders, was Speaker McCarthy a flight risk?
The non-disclosure order was based on concerns about.
Was Speaker
obstruction.
McCarthy a flight risk?
He was not.
He was not. Then why did your non-disclosure order refer to him as a flight risk? It says right here, the court finds reasonable grounds to believe that such disclosure will result in flight from prosecution.
Sir, when securing a non-disclosure order, the risks don't have to be
You
associated.
think that the Speaker of the House is a
Finish
flight
answering the
risk?
question?
No, this is not your time. This is my time. You think the Speaker of the House is a flight risk? You think he's going to hop on a plane and leave the country?
No, what I was trying to explain is with respect to a non-disclosure order, the risks aren't necessarily associated with the subscriber to the phone. They're the risks to the
Okay.
investigation.
I think that you were using, this was clearly in reference to Speaker McCarthy, and you were using clearly false information to secure a non-disclosure order to hide from Speaker McCarthy and from the American people the fact that you were spying on his toll records. But I've got more, so let's move on. In May of 2023, you also issued subpoenas for toll records of 9 U.S. senators and an additional representative. Is that right?
In May of 23, we did issue.
You did, and there were non-disclosure orders in conjunction with those subpoenas as well, right?
That's correct, consistent with department policy and
Right.
the law.
So again, nobody would know what you were doing. The senators would, and the representatives would, and the American people wouldn't know what you were doing. Is that right?
The toll records that we secured and the non-disclosure orders were consistent with policy and.
And you knew
with
whenever you were
standards
doing that there was a risk you were violating the speech or debate clause. Is that right?
The toll record subpoenas that we secured were with the concurrence of the public integrity.
Your own analysis says that you knew there was a risk you were violating the speech or debate clause. I have it right here. This is an email from John Keller at Public Integrity Section to your team. As you are aware, quote, as you are aware, there is some litigation risk regarding whether compelled disclosure of toll records of a member's legislative calls violates the speech or debate clause in the DC Circuit. That's from your own analysis right there. So you did know, didn't you?
Sir, with respect to the item you just put up on the screen, the last sentence states.
Oh, we're going to get to the last sentence.
Okay.
We're going to get to the last sentence. And you cite case law in here, quote, the bar on compelled disclosure is absolute. Is that right? Or do you think that you didn't have to abide by that precedent?
To be clear, this statement is not from my office. This is the statement.
This
of
is
the Public
this is
Integrity
your
Section.
justification for those subpoenas and NDOs that you ordered. This was part of your analysis. It's a cursory analysis. I think it's worth noting. But let's get to that last sentence then. Quote, given my understanding of the low likelihood that any of the members listed below would be charged, the litigation risk should be minimal here. In other words, you're using a novel legal theory, which you knew was novel, has never been tested by any court. You're not charging any of these members. Nobody's going to know about it because you issued NDOs. Nobody's going to sue about it, so sue this. So who cares? We're going to do it anyways. I mean, you walked all over the Constitution throughout this entire process.
Mr. Chairman, the gentleman's time's
spying
expired.
on members of Congress, and you know it. It's absolutely disgraceful.
The time.
I yield back.
Gentlemen, yields back. Not going to be charged. They're not going to see it. They're not going to know because we're not going to tell them. So let's go ahead and do it. It's exactly what happened. The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Smith, it's great that you've been allowed to come here and testify to the American public. Is there anything you'd like briefly to discuss that Mr. Gill brought up on the reasons why you needed those phone records and the limitations that you thought might have been on you and the prosecution to risk the investigation?
Sure. And I would begin by pointing out that the email that was referenced wasn't a justification from my office. It was an email from the Public Integrity Section to my office approving the subpoenas. The subpoenas that we secured with non-disclosure orders from a judge because I had grave concerns about obstruction of justice in this investigation, specifically with regards to Donald Trump. Not only did we have the obstruction of justice that we were investigating in the classified documents case, but I was aware during the course of our investigation of targeting of witnesses during the course of the conspiracy itself. There were election workers who had their lives turned upside down and received vile death threats because they were targeted by Donald Trump and his co-conspirators. I had a duty to protect witnesses in this investigation. That risk, that threat to witnesses was only confirmed when we went forward in this case and Donald Trump suggested that one witness should be put to death, and then also issued a statement to the effect of, if you come after me, I'm coming after you. In my mind, I can't think of a more direct threat to witnesses and individuals involved in that proceeding. Given that sort of threats, it was, in my view, completely appropriate to protect the integrity of the investigation, to protect against destruction of evidence, and to protect the witnesses in our case.
And just make clear, you did not see any of the discussion. There was not any, it was just the content that they made a call to the president and vice versa, but nothing about any content whatsoever.
That's correct. A toll record subpoena gives you who a call is from, who it is to, and the length of that call. It does not tell you the content of what people are speaking about.
You felt that you had a case that was one that you would win beyond a reasonable doubt, no moral certainty. Is there anything in your facts that you had that you would have used at trial that you believe has not been represented to the public? You felt would have resulted in a conviction of the president on the charges that he was indicted upon?
I think my report, the report of our case, the final report, summarizes the evidence, I think, in a way that is gives a fair rating of the strength of the case.
And you have no question but have been successful before jury?
My review of the case, I came to the conclusion we had proof beyond a reasonable doubt. We were ready, willing, and able to go to trial in the case. Of course, as I said in my opening statement, prosecutors can't control outcomes, but I felt confident in pursuing the case to trial.
Did Merrick Garland ever pressure you to bring an indictment or to do anything in your investigation?
No.
Did anybody else in the administration, President Biden, Vice President Harris, et cetera?
I was given the independence to conduct my investigation, and I came to the decision to bring charges in this case without undue influence from anybody in the department.
And you dropped the case. Why did you drop the case?
The cases against Donald Trump were dismissed pursuant to department policy.
Department policy, the Office of Legal Counsel said if somebody's president, you can't bring a charge against them or they can't be held liable. Is that correct?
That's correct. There had not been a case of this nature ever where someone was elected president with charges pending, and so that was slightly different. So we consulted with with the Office of Legal Counsel, and they determined pursuant to policy that the cases needed to be dismissed.
And you weren't pleased with that, but you had to follow the law, and that's what you did.
We followed policy throughout my investigation. My job was not to set policy. My job was to follow it, and that's what we did.
I want to thank you for your service. I think you're a great American, and you came out of this as being somebody who people can respect and look up to in a fashion that we should be instilling people's desire to go into justice, to go into law, and to go into government. You're an example of the type of person they should follow. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Smith, there's something that's really bothering me since your deposition. It's how and why you got the position of special counsel and your personal relationship with Marshall Miller. Let's go back to 1999 when you were working for the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York. Is that when you first met Marshall Miller?
Yes.
So after ED New York, did the two of you ever work together again prior to becoming special counsel? According to the public bios for you and Mr. Miller, you overlapped at DOJ from 2014-15 when you were chief of DOJ's Public Integrity Section and Mr. Miller was chief of staff for DOJ's Criminal Division. Is that accurate?
I believe that is accurate, yes.
Okay, so were the two of you social outside of work?
I would say intermittently, yes,
Okay, but after 20 years of knowing each other, it's safe to say you were friends, correct?
yes,
Okay, so let's fast forward to 2022. Mr. Miller is appointed Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General at DOJ, the number 3 at DOJ. You call your friend to congratulate him, and according to the deposition transcript, you say you'd be interested in a position at DOJ. Is that correct?
yes. What I recall is that I expressed an interest if the right position came up, I would be interested in
But
considering.
at that point, there's no discussion about special counsel. Is that correct?
This is some time ago, and so I don't have a specific recollection of all these conversations.
So you were first approached about special counsel and that role before the 22 midterm elections. And according to the deposition transcript in October of 2022, you fly to DC, meet with the AG and the Deputy Attorney General. Is that correct?
Yes, I flew to DC, I believe it was in October, and I met the Deputy Attorney General, and also I met the Attorney General.
So in multiple conversations with your friend Marshall Miller, he never once tipped you off that the Attorney General or Deputy Attorney General have you on the short list for special counsel? That never came up?
Again, this was some time ago, but my recollection is I came to Washington and I met with those individuals as well as the Human Rights Section. Marshall Miller is the person who set that up.
So he was at the meetings. Was he at the meetings? So just to tie all this together, you've known Mr. Miller since you were both AUSA in New York. You stayed in touch over a 20-year career in federal government. He gets a job with the Biden administration, and just a few short months later, you're offered the role of special counsel. I'm having a hard time believing that this is some big coincidence and that there wasn't a back and forth on the special counsel. So maybe you never received directives explicitly from the AG or the Deputy Attorney General, but was Marshall Miller, did he become a two-way conduit throughout the investigation with DOJ?
No, and I would not take direction from a political person, a political figure, about how I should conduct an investigation.
But you never spoke to him throughout the entire time you were conducting an investigation?
No, I didn't say that. What I said was
okay,
that he was, I think you asked if he was a conduit of information. He was present, to my recollection, at meetings, briefings that I had with the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General during my time as special counsel.
I mean, I don't want to assume anything, but Mr. Miller wanted you in that position, not because you're necessarily the best lawyer he ever met, but because of the long-term friendship that you have with him.
What I can tell you is I have been a prosecutor for 30 years. I have been an apolitical public servant for 30 years. I've prosecuted cases against Democrats and Republicans, all the same. I've had, in my view, the experience necessary for this position, and that's why I accepted it.
So he knew that you would pursue, I mean, he had to have an idea that you would pursue exactly what the Biden administration wanted, which was criminal charges against President Trump.
I think that anybody who knows me well knows the idea that I would take direction from a political figure about how an investigation should come out. I don't think anybody who knows me thinks that's true.
Well, Chairman Jordan, I think the next deposition should be with Marshall Miller at this point. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
And while we are deposing Marshall Miller, maybe we can depose Donald Trump about why he chose his personal lawyer to be 6, 2026, the 5th anniversary of the insurrection. The White House launched a taxpayer-funded website that attempts to rewrite history about what happened on that day of infamy. On January 6, 2021, there was an insurrection at the United States Capitol that resulted in a police officer dying the next day, another 4 officers dying by suicide in the months thereafter, with at least 140 police officers being injured by the insurrectionists, with 15 of them requiring hospitalization. And I'm proud that we have 4 former officers as well as on-duty Capitol Hill police officers here today. Mr. Smith, I want to ask you about this website because the Trump administration is using taxpayer dollars to lie to the American people about the events leading up to and the events taking place on January 6, 2021. For example, this Trump propaganda site claims that the 2020 election was, quote, stolen. Mr. Smith, did your investigation uncover evidence sufficient to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump knew that his claim that the election was stolen was false?
Yes, it did.
And did your investigation uncover evidence sufficient to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump publicly claimed that the 2020 election was stolen from him while he privately acknowledged that he had lost the election?
Yes, we cited instances of that during in our case.
But yet here we see that on the 5th anniversary of the insurrection, the Trump White House propaganda machine is still promoting the stolen election theory on this government webpage with a text box titled, quote, fraudulent election, stolen election certified, end quote. The site also has a subsection reading in part, quote, FBI entrapment operation exposed. Mr. Smith, did your investigation develop any evidence to support the allegation that the FBI entrapped insurrectionists into committing crimes on January 6th?
Our investigation revealed that Donald Trump is the person who caused January 6th, that it was foreseeable to him, and that he sought to exploit the violence.
This website also accuses you of being a, quote, Biden prosecutor who brought, quote, weaponized charges against Mr. Trump. Mr. Smith, were you a Biden prosecutor who weaponized the Department of Justice against Donald Trump?
Absolutely not.
Did Attorney General Merrick Garland direct you to prosecute Trump because Donald Trump was running against Joe Biden in the presidential election?
No.
There are also allegations that President Trump was the victim of, quote, lawfare, and accusations that the Department of Justice lawyers who prosecuted Donald Trump used, quote, fabricated indictments and rigged show trials. Did you, Mr. Smith, or the men and women working on your team work to fabricate indictments or put on rigged show trials?
No, we secured indictments from grand juries, and we were prepared to prove our case in court beyond a reasonable doubt.
Did you use your appointment as special counsel to conduct a politically motivated witch hunt, scam investigation, and prosecution of Donald Trump?
I did not. We followed the facts and we followed the law. Where that led us was to an indictment of an unprecedented criminal scheme to block the peaceful transfer of power.
And those indictments have been dismissed. Can they be re-brought or resurrected after Trump leaves office?
They were dismissed without prejudice.
So they can be refiled? And he can be prosecuted after he leaves office, is that correct?
I'm not going to speak to that. I can only speak to what we did, which was dismiss the case without prejudice.
All right. The website put out by the Trump White House on the anniversary of January 6th is nothing more than a pack of lies. It proves that Donald Trump is hell-bent on misusing taxpayer dollars in a feeble attempt to rewrite his criminal history and the history of what happened on January 6, 2021. And with that, I yield back, but I would like to, Mr. Chairman, offer for the record
Unanimous consent?
Unanimous consent. A statement from Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency released on November 12th, 2020 that states the November 3rd election was the most secure in American history.
Objection.
And also testimony from, I would like to request unanimous consent to enter into the record the September 24th, 2020 testimony of Trump's former FBI Director Chris Wray, who told Senate Homeland Security, the Homeland Security Committee of the Senate, that the FBI had, quote, not seen or historically had any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election.
Without objection.
And last but not least, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record this article titled "Disputing Trump, Barr Says No Widespread Election Fraud."
Without objection. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, on November 18th, 2022, AG Garland appointed you as special counsel. Can you tell me about your swearing in or the oath of office that you took after that?
I don't recall the specifics of it. I know I was sworn in. I don't recall the specifics of how that was done.
You don't remember who swore you in?
I don't.
Would you agree that taking the oath of office is a legal requirement for the job that you had?
I've taken oaths of office regularly. I haven't researched whether it's required or not, but I've done that, I think, in every government case.
It is required. Terms I heard earlier today were atypical, irregular, no proper procedure. Yet in your opening statement, you said that we followed Justice Department policies, and I would assume you meant the law as well. It strikes me as odd that you don't remember who swore you in, how you were sworn in. It's pretty significant. We all get sworn in here, and I remember every day. You don't remember who swore you in.
I don't remember the details of it as I sit here today.
But you did take the oath of office before you got rolling.
I think my recollection is it was when I was appointed.
It was when. It strikes me as odd that Attorney General Garland had you retake the oath of office on the 14th of September of the following year. Why did he make you do that?
As I sit here right now, I do not recall. I know that there is the oath of office that I signed. I believe it was on the 18th, the day that I was appointed. And I know the department had me do a second one. I don't know the particulars of why they asked me to do it again, but I know
you signed it on the 20th of November 2022, but there was no witness, which, I mean, you have to agree it's a little odd. If there's no witness saying that you took the oath of office, it would maybe make someone like me question whether or not you were legitimately doing the job until you finally took the oath of office. It sounds like the Attorney General had the same question and thought, oh shit, we got to have him sign this on the 14th day of September of the following year. So why did you take the oath of office again on the 14th of September of the following year when you say you took the office in November of 2022? Why'd you need to do it twice?
My recollection is that I took the oath of office, as you said, it was the 18th or the 20th, and felt I was under the oath of office. I believe, if you have it in front of you, I think I signed an oath.
You signed it, but there was no witness. There was supposed to be either notarized or a witness. And apparently Attorney General Garland thought it was significant enough to have you do another oath 11 months later. That's strange, right?
I don't know why they asked me to sign it again. I don't recall ever discussing this issue with Attorney General Garland.
Well, that is just wild to me. I'd like to yield the balance of my time to Mr. Jordan.
Well, which one was the official one? Which one counted? I think that's what the gentleman's asking.
I understood myself to have taken the oath of office when I assumed the job.
How much money did you, okay, how much money did you spend in the investigating President Trump? How much money did your office spend?
I do not recall as I sit here now, but I know that pursuant to, I believe it's the special counsel regulations, reports were issued each 6 months detailing how much.
We gathered at $35 million. And what I want to know is how much of that $35 million of taxpayer money, confidential human sources? We know you gave $20,000 to someone. It just got reported last week. How much more money did you pay confidential people we don't know about, with American tax money going after the guy we elected president?
My recollection regards the $20,000, which was not a payment from me. It was me approving a payment by the FBI to a confidential human source who was reviewing video and photographic
Who's the source?
evidence. I do not know the identity of the source. What
How
I know-
many other payments went to this source or other sources?
As I sit here, I do not know the answer to that question. My role as special counsel, I was
$35
not-
million and you're giving money to people the country doesn't know who they are and you're giving their hard-earned money to these folks? The main question I have too with this is why'd you have to do it? You subpoenaed bank records from the RNC, phone records from members of Congress. You got subpoenas for bank records for people sitting right there in the front row. Why did you have to pay people for information when you could subpoena them and get it?
Time has expired.
Time has expired. You can answer the question. Country'd like to know why you had to do it.
My recollection and understanding is the payment, the $20,000 that I approved, was for a confidential human source to assist in the review of video and photographic evidence showing people who were attacking the Capitol, attacking police officers, obstructing the proceeding, and seeing if we could prove that some of those people had come directly.
That wasn't my question, but my time has expired. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Smith, I want you to have the utmost confidence in what you did. You did everything right. Harry Dunn, Danny Hodges, Sergeant Cannell, Mike Fanone, they did everything right. These guys, my Republican colleagues, are a joke. They're wrong. History will harshly judge them. So I want you to lean in today. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You did everything right, sir. And I am these guys are so lucky they're not under oath, because they would have to tell you what they really think of Trump. They call him crooked. They call him cruel. They call him a scumbag. I've heard you all say it. You're lucky you're not under Trump, but when the lights go on and the cameras are on, you're tiny, you're small, you shrink. Everyone remembers Matt Gaetz coming over here after a committee hearing. He would laugh at how stupid he thought Trump was. This is all a show. And Mr. Smith, you're just the latest act that they've brought in. But they can't erase what happened on January 6th because we saw it with our own eyes. Mr. Smith, after the mainstream media called the race for Biden about a week after the election, did Donald Trump concede the election?
He did not.
The next month, the Electoral College met in every state and voted Biden as the winner. Did Donald Trump concede then?
He did not.
Shortly after that, the last court case that Donald Trump brought was thrown out. Did he concede then?
No.
Is it your judgment then that only Donald Trump could have convened the mob in the size that it was assembled on January 6th?
Our assessment of the evidence is that he is the person most responsible for what happened on January 6th. He caused what happened. It was foreseeable to him. And then when it happened, he tried to exploit it in furtherance of the conspiracy.
And you actually obtained indictments from a grand jury, right? You went to a grand jury and did something that the Trump administration has not been able to do as they go after their enemies. Their cases are being thrown out. You obtained criminal indictments against the president. Is that right?
That's correct.
Mr. Smith, do you know who Edward Loya is?
I'm sorry?
Edward Loya, L-O-Y-A?
I believe Mr. Loya worked at the Public Integrity Section when I was.
Did you know that he said of you, when it comes to investigating allegations of sophisticated federal criminal matters, Jack Smith is the gold standard? Do you know who Mr. James McGovern is?
Yes, he was a prosecutor I worked with in New York.
Did you know that he said of you, I have no idea what Mr. Smith's political beliefs are because he's completely apolitical? So are you a registered independent?
I have no partisan loyalties. I don't know if I'm registered as independent or not registered at all.
Are you glad you accepted Attorney General Garland's request to be a special prosecutor, even though you've been dragged over political barbed wire and your family has been subjected to death threats?
I don't regret it.
Do you remember where you were on September 11th?
I do.
What did you think of that day?
I was in Brooklyn when that happened. I was at the command center that night. I worked on that investigation. I remember pretty clearly.
Do you remember where you were on January 6th?
On January 6th, I was living in Europe working for the State Department seconded to a war crimes tribunal.
What did you think as you watched on television what happened at the Capitol that day?
To be honest with you, I don't recall if I saw it that day or a later day because of the time period.
What did you think when you saw it?
I was shocked. I was shocked by it. I obviously, being in Europe and not following things as closely, I was not, frankly, up to speed on the events leading up to it.
What shocked you about it?
I just never seen anything like that happen in our country.
Mr. Smith, I don't know if I'll ever have the honor to talk to you again. If I don't, please know that I and my colleagues on the Democratic side, and even my Republican colleagues when they speak privately, have nothing but respect and appreciation for what you tried to do and how you did it. You, unlike many here, are a man of honor. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Alabama is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Smith, you appear before this committee today not as a neutral observer of the law, but at one point you were one of the most powerful prosecutors in the federal system, armed with enormous discretion, minimal oversight, and a mandate that goes to the very heart of our constitutional order. You brought charges during an active election cycle. You relied on legal theories that had never before been tested in context. And you did so while disregarding long-standing Department of Justice policies designed to prevent prosecutors from influencing elections. Mr. Smith, you claimed in your investigation you developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal scheme to overturn the results in the 2020 election and to prevent lawful transfer of power. However, a few weeks ago in Georgia, Fulton County election board officials stated that 315,000 ballots were certified without required signatures on the tabulator tapes for poll workers. These signatures were required by the Georgia statute. If not counted, this could have turned the state of Georgia red, and I won't doubt there were similar schemes in many other states. You were illegally appointed to serve as special counsel since you were not confirmed by advance and consent Senate and stated in the appointments clause. You also issued an indictment against then President Biden's most formidable political opponent. The candidate was President Trump, and you issued a gag order for President Trump during a 2024 election cycle. This was a major violation of President Trump's First Amendment rights and a poor attempt to outright censor the leading political candidate. These actions were nothing short of election interference. 9 senators, including Senator Tuberville from my state of Alabama, and multiple Republican members of the House of Representatives had their phones subpoenaed or their records subpoenaed. Some you seized their phones. Even then, Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, one of the highest ranking Republicans in the country, had his phone records subpoenaed, all for political gain. These subpoenas clearly violated the speech and debate clause. As John Keller of the DOJ's Public Integrity section addressed this issue in an email dated May 17th of 2023, DC Circuit President stated that the speech and debate clause, and the bar is this, bar on compelled disclosure is absolute. These instances are not only the tip of the iceberg about you and your team's flagrant disregard of the Constitution. Mr. Smith, your actions have changed and damaged confidence in our justice system. Today, this committee will determine whether that damage was a result of reckless judgment, political bias, or deliberate misuse of authority. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield you the balance of my time for questions.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I want to go back to that email. If we could put that up, this email that Mr. Gill highlighted a few minutes ago. This is the justification from the public integrity section. If you look at the bottom, John Keller, public integrity section, for going and getting the phone records, toll records of members of Congress. And there's a couple of things I want to highlight. That first highlighted area, there is some litigation risk. So they admit there's some concern here. And they send this to the copy to Jack Smith's team. And then you go down later, as Mr. Gill pointed out, the case law is clear. A legislator may intervene and oppose such use. So the risk is real. But here's the deal. There was really no risk because we weren't going to know. They weren't going to tell us. They made sure they didn't tell us because they went to the judge and got a gag order. And look at the last sentence. The last sentence. Low likelihood that any of the members listed below would be charged. So they're not going to know because we're not going to charge any of these guys. They didn't do anything wrong. And so therefore, the litigation risk should be minimal. They're not going to be charged. We're not going to go after them. The litigation risk is minimal. And it's minimal because, frankly, it's non-existent because they're not going to know. And we're going to make sure they don't know because we're not even going to tell the judge who we're getting the gag orders on. And yet, Mr. Smith thought that was A-okay. That was just fine. That was in the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. I find that hard to believe. And you know why? You know why everyone knows it's wrong? Because the public integrity section at the Justice Department has now changed its policy. You can't do this anymore. They've changed their policy, but it was okay for Jack Smith to do it because we got to get Trump. We got to get the president. That's what this was all about. Yield back to the gentleman from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have some Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a transcript of the voicemail that President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, left Senator Tuberville on January 6th, in which he states, "I'm calling you because I want to discuss with you how they're trying to rush this hearing and how we need you, our Republican friends, to try to just slow it down so we can get these legislatures to get more information."
Without objection. Gentleman yields back
Thank you.
the chair. Now recognizes the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The House Judiciary Committee is responsible for helping to ensure the rule of law. Unfortunately, the chairman of this committee ignored a bipartisan congressional subpoena directed at him. His actions have made it harder for this committee and other congressional committees to get witnesses and testimony and damage the rule of law. Now, before I ask questions of Mr. Smith, are Republicans of talking about the Epstein files? They're so scared that they literally are calling Jack Smith the distinguished federal prosecutor who secured multiple indictments against Donald Trump with multiple felony counts. Republicans would rather talk about the criminality of Donald Trump in trying to steal an election and trying to stop the peaceful transfer of power, and the criminality of Donald Trump in stealing classified documents, obstructing justice, than about Donald Trump's associations with Jeffrey Epstein and his pedophilia ring. I demand this committee, this chairman, and Republicans to call an immediate hearing asking why the Department of Justice is refusing to release 99% of the Epstein files and why the DOJ is violating the law right now. I have questions, Mr. Smith, for you, and thank you for being here today. My questions center on interactions or lack of interactions between the Biden administration and yourself. Did President Biden or anyone in the Biden White House ever direct you to seek retribution against anyone perceived to be Biden's political opponent?
No.
Did the Biden administration or President Biden or anyone in the White House ever write a social media post directing you to seek retribution against any particular individual?
No.
Did President Biden or anyone else in the Biden White House ever direct you to take any prosecutorial step whatsoever?
No.
Okay. Donald Trump made it clear he wanted to seek retribution against New York Attorney General Tish James. Trump relentlessly attacked her, saying, quote, she should be prosecuted and, quote, arrested and punished because she dared to hold Trump accountable for Trump's fraud in New York. Trump weaponized the Department of Justice, and the Trump DOJ opened a sham investigation into her alleged mortgage fraud. We know it's a sham investigation because they couldn't even get twice grand juries to secure indictments against her. When interim U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert, who Donald Trump himself appointed, spent 5 months investigating Tish James, He concluded there was not enough evidence to go forward. And what did Trump do? He fired his own U.S. attorney. Mr. Smith, did President Biden or anyone else in the Biden White House ever tell you that Donald Trump should be, quote, arrested and punished?
No.
Did President Biden or anyone else in the Biden White House ever threaten to fire you based on any action you took or did not take?
No.
Donald Trump also directed the Trump DOJ to open investigations into his own appointees who refused to do his bidding. His DOJ recently investigated Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell because Powell won't cede to Trump's bullying on interest rates. Did President Biden or anyone else in the Biden White House ever direct you to go after any Biden appointee?
No.
I just want to say a little bit about what the Republicans have brought up about these phone toll records. Do you believe the Speaker of the House is above the law?
No, I don't believe anybody should be above the law.
Right. And U.S. senators are not above the law, correct?
No.
Yeah. And members of Congress are not above the law, right?
No.
Yeah, that's right, because we're not. And what Republicans are trying to argue is somehow, if you're doing an investigation, you can't do stuff to senators or members of Congress. Get out of here. We're just under a law like everybody else. And by the way, the speech and debate clause only applies to legislative acts, communications with legislative acts. Stealing a frickin' election, trying to do so, is not a legislative act. It is a crime. So I don't know what the heck they're talking about. And this is so stupid. I'm a former prosecutor. You'd never in an investigation go and try to get someone's toll records or phone records and then tell them, hey, dude, we're about to get your phone records. Of course you wouldn't tell them. What the Republicans are saying today is just idiotic. I'm so pleased you're here on national TV telling the American people that Trump was indicted. He was indicted lawfully, and multiple grand juries secured those indictments. Thank you for your service, and history will look upon you well. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Smith, you have a long tenure at the Department of Justice. Would you agree with the statement that DOJ charging policies require prosecutors to bring charges only where the admissible evidence is expected to be sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction? Is that right?
That is correct. That's from the federal principles of prosecution.
And in this case you brought against President Trump, one of the charges you pursued was under Title 18, Section 371, which requires an agreement to interfere with the lawful function of the United States through deceit or dishonesty that the defendant knowingly and intentionally joined, and an overt act. And what I'd like to ask you